A struggling waitress entered the wrong car after her shift and found herself in the middle of a millionaire's secret plan for redemption. Rain battered the windows like a furious symphony, and thunder cracked over the greasy rooftop of the 24-hour diner tucked at the edge of the city. Inside, the hum of flickering fluorescent lights mixed with the clatter of dishes and tired footsteps. Grace, 25, moved like a shadow among the booths, balancing a tray with 2 coffees and a weary smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Her shoes were soaked through, her apron was stained with 100 strangers' meals, her body ached from another endless night shift. The clock above the register blinked 3:17 IE. Outside, the storm showed no signs of stopping. She slipped her tip money, a handful of crumpled bills, into her coat pocket, waved goodbye to the sleepy cook, and stepped into the downpour, clutching her phone. The screen was cracked, battery at 1%. She had ordered a rideshare 15 minutes ago, and now all she wanted was to collapse into the back seat and disappear into silence. Near the alley, a sleek black car idled, engine humming, tinted windows glistening under the rain. The make and model looked right. Same color, same location. No other car in sight. Too tired to second-guess herself, Grace hurried over and yanked the back door open, diving inside, her wet jacket trailing puddles on the leather seat. "Finally," she muttered, pulling the door shut behind her. "I thought you—" A sharp click cut her off. She froze. The barrel of a gun was pointed at her head. In the front seat, a man in a dark coat turned slowly, his eyes steel gray, unblinking, his voice low and deadly. "Who are you?" he said coldly. "Who sent you to follow me?" Grace's heart slammed against her ribs. "What? No, wait. I just got off work. I thought this was—" "Don't lie to me." His voice sliced through the air. "You knew exactly where to find me. Who are you working for?" "I'm not working for anyone," she screamed, hands raised in terror. "I'm just a waitress. I don't know who you are." For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The man's finger tightened slightly on the trigger. Then something shifted in his gaze. Hesitation, confusion, calculation. But before he could decide what to do next, bang! The passenger side window shattered. Glass exploded inward. Grace ducked instinctively, screaming again as bullets tore into the frame of the car. "Down!" the man barked, twisting the wheel. The car lurched forward, tires screeching on wet asphalt. Grace was thrown sideways as they sped into the storm, rain blurring the windshield, headlights slicing through the darkness. Another shot rang out behind them, then another. "Why are they shooting at us?" Grace shrieked. "Shut up!" the man snapped. "You brought them here, didn't you?" "No, I swear I didn't." More gunfire. The rearview mirror exploded. The man floored the gas. They barreled down side streets and alleys, tires skidding, the city's sleeping edge flying past in a blur. Grace clung to the seat, heart pounding, her mind racing to catch up to the nightmare unfolding around her. "Please," she sobbed. "Please, I don't know who you are. I don't know what this is. I just wanted to go home." The man didn't respond. He was too busy driving like his life, and now hers, depended on it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the gunfire stopped. The shadows fell behind them. The silence returned, broken only by the pounding rain and the rapid thrum of the car engine. The man turned onto a deserted road lined with trees and dim streetlights, then pulled into the lot of an abandoned warehouse. He killed the engine, breathing hard, still clutching the steering wheel. Grace didn't dare move. His voice, when it came, was hoarse, controlled. "What's your name?" "Grace," she whispered. "You really have no idea who I am?" "No." "You're not one of them." "I don't even know who them is." He looked at her for a long time, then, slowly, he lowered the gun. "I'm Lucas," he said. "Lucas Black." She stared at him, soaked, shaking, still pressed against the door like a cornered animal. "Who are you?" she asked. He looked away. "No one you were ever meant to meet." The rain had lessened by the time they reached the outskirts of the industrial zone. Lucas steered the car behind an old textile factory, long abandoned, its windows boarded and roof partially collapsed. He parked behind a rusted shipping container, then stepped out silently. Grace hesitated, watching him disappear into the shadows before finally following. her soaked shoes squelching with every step. Her hands trembled from adrenaline and cold, but she refused to show weakness. Lucas pushed open a steel door on the side of the building and led her inside. The warehouse was dimly lit, scattered with equipment that looked like it had not been touched in years. In the back corner, however, was a makeshift setup: a mattress on crates, a portable heater, a table with surveillance monitors, and stacks of files and electronics. "Welcome to my palace," he muttered dryly, tossing a duffel bag on the floor. Grace stood awkwardly near the doorway, arms folded tightly across her chest. "Is this where you live? For now? I want to go home." "You can't." She stepped back, alarmed. "What do you mean, I can't?" He sighed and rubbed his face. "Your phone's dead. Your face has already been picked up by the street cams when we fled the diner. If I let you walk out, they'll trace you to me. I can't afford that." "So what? You're going to keep me here like a prisoner?" "No," Lucas said, eyes meeting hers. "I'm not going to tie you up, but I'm asking you not to leave, for your safety and mine, just until I know it's clear." Grace paced, her breath coming fast. "This is insane. This can't be happening." Lucas poured water into a kettle and placed it on a small burner. "Trust me. I didn't plan to drag anyone else into this." "Then let me go." "You scream and someone finds us, we both die," he snapped. "So no, I'm not taking that risk." She stopped. The seriousness in his voice sank in. After a long silence, she slumped onto a metal chair. "Fine, just tell me what the hell is going on." Lucas handed her a dry blanket and a mug of warm water. Then, for the first time, he sat down across from her, not as a stranger with a gun, but as a man carrying something too heavy for one person. "I used to be someone else," he said, voice quiet, "before the world figured out how to rip apart everything that made me human." Grace blinked. "Supposed to mean something to me? I was a government asset. Intelligence division. Then I became a private contractor. Worked security, cyber defense, high-level stuff. Made more money than I could ever spend. Got out before it ruined me." "Clearly, you didn't get out fast enough." Lucas gave a hollow laugh. "I thought I was out, until I uncovered something, and they came after my family to keep me quiet." His voice hardened. "They burned my company to the ground, drove my brother to suicide, and nearly killed my mother. They erased my name from everything, so I let them believe I was dead too." Grace sat in stunned silence, the pieces clicking together slowly. "I'm not here to run anymore," Lucas continued. "I'm here to finish what they started." She swallowed. "And you think I'm just going to sit here and pretend that makes sense?" "I don't care if it makes sense," he said. "I just need someone who doesn't know my past, someone who can stand beside me and not see the headlines. Someone who isn't part of the world that tried to destroy me." Grace shook her head. "You don't even know me." Lucas stared at her for a long moment. "I know enough," he said. "You stepped into the wrong car and didn't run when the bullets started flying. That tells me more than most resumes." She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Great. So what am I now, your accidental sidekick?" "No," he said softly. "You're just a stranger. And for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to think that might be exactly what I need." The wind howled outside, but inside the warehouse, something shifted between them. A fragile thread of understanding, spun in the chaos of a storm neither of them had chosen. The days blurred into one another inside the abandoned warehouse. Outside, the rain kept falling, masking the echoes of the past that haunted both Lucas and Grace. She kept to her corner of the makeshift shelter, her silence slowly turning into cautious observation. Lucas was gone most days, returning only after dark, with bruises, intel, and tightly drawn features. Grace stayed behind, making tea, tidying, watching the wind sway through broken windows. But curiosity gnawed at her. On the fourth day, while Lucas was out on a supply run, she gave in. He had told her not to touch his files, but the folders sat open on the table, begging for answers. She scanned through the pages, piecing together maps, receipts, hacked correspondences. Then she froze. A black and white photo, slightly crumpled but unmistakable, stared back at her. Henry Vale. The name beneath the picture sent a cold rush down her spine. She clutched the page tighter, her breath catching in her throat. The man in the photo? He wasn't just a name from some corruption scandal or corporate takedown. He was the man, the one who destroyed her childhood, who manipulated her father into a fake investment scheme, the man whose lies drove her father to take his own life. Grace had been 16. She remembered the headlines, the police investigations, the pitying looks, the foreclosure notices. Her hands trembled as she shoved the papers back. The ache in her chest roared awake after years of forced silence. She thought she had buried it. She thought it was over. It wasn't. Lucas returned hours later, wet and worn, a faint scratch on his temple. He noticed her the moment he stepped in. "What happened?" Grace didn't answer. She threw the photo on the table. "Why him?" she said, voice shaking. "Why is he the one you're after?" Lucas tensed, his eyes flicking to the photo. "You went through my files." "I had a right to know. That man, he didn't just hurt you. He destroyed my family. My father believed him. He invested every last cent. We lost our home. My sister dropped out of school to support us. My dad, he—" Her voice cracked. Lucas's expression softened. "He took his life." Grace blinked back tears. "You knew?" "I suspected," Lucas said quietly. "I've traced dozens of similar patterns. Good people ruined by Vale's games. But I didn't know it touched you too." Grace stared at him. "You should have told me." "I didn't think it mattered." "Well, it does," she snapped, "because I thought I was just a mistake in your plan, a waitress who sat in the wrong car. But now, it feels like something else." Lucas moved closer, resting his hands on the edge of the table. "You think I planned this?" "I don't know what to think," Grace said, voice cracking, "but I do know that man deserves to fall. And I'm not just going to sit here while you take him down without me." Lucas's eyes locked onto hers, a flicker of something new passing between them. Not suspicion, not mistrust, but recognition. Shared fire. "I spent years planning this alone," he said slowly. "No names, no attachments. But maybe this wasn't an accident." Grace stepped closer too, the distance between them evaporating. "Maybe the universe is giving us a second chance, a way to reclaim what was stolen." Silence stretched for a moment, heavy with history. Lucas finally nodded. "We do this smart, clean. No revenge rage. We expose him, ruin him legally, financially, publicly." Grace smirked bitterly. "You sound like you almost believe in justice." "I believe in ending monsters the way they ended us," Lucas said. "But with our names still intact." She looked down at the file again, then back at him. "Then let's burn him down together." In that moment, something shifted. They were no longer strangers trapped by coincidence. They were partners. Two broken souls joined by scars deeper than they had ever dared speak aloud. The war had become personal, but for the first time in years, neither of them felt alone. The following morning, Grace stood by the dusty warehouse window, her gaze fixed on the morning fog that rolled like waves outside. She no longer felt like a prisoner, nor a bystander. Something had changed overnight. Something inside her had awoken. "I have an idea," she said without turning around. Lucas, seated at the table sharpening a small pocket knife, looked up. "That sounds dangerous already." Grace turned, her eyes firm. "Vale's going to the Haverly Foundation Gala next week. It's his annual stunt, donating $1 million to charity while laundering 3 times that behind the scenes." Lucas frowned. "How do you know that?" "I may be a waitress, but I'm not deaf. Wealthy people like to talk down to you, like you're furniture. I've served drinks at that gala 3 years in a row." Lucas leaned forward. "You want to go back in there?" "I want to get close enough to record him, find out who's working with him. We need something real, evidence that will blow everything open." "It's not a game, Grace." "That crowd. They play dirty. If they sniff out you're anything but harmless. That's why I need you to teach me," she said, stepping closer. "Not just how to record. I want to learn how to protect myself." Lucas's gaze darkened slightly. "Are you sure?" "I'm done being scared," Grace said quietly. "I don't want to run anymore. I want to fight." For the next 3 days, the warehouse transformed into a makeshift training camp. Lucas showed her how to detect surveillance, how to blend in without being noticed, how to press a button inside a sleeve cuff that would activate a hidden recorder. She learned to read lips from across a room, how to smile while watching for exits, how to disarm someone twice her size. "You're a fast learner," Lucas admitted one evening as Grace knocked him off balance during a self-defense drill. They both tumbled to the ground, laughing breathlessly. "But maybe I've been training my whole life without realizing it," she replied, brushing hair from her face. He smiled. It was the first time she had seen his smile stretch all the way to his eyes. That night, over a modest meal of canned soup and crackers, Grace stared at the glowing device in her palm, the micro recorder no larger than a coin. "Scared?" Lucas asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I used to be, not anymore." Their eyes met across the flickering candle between them. Silence settled over the room, warm and heavy. Grace spoke softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "For the first time in years, I don't feel like a victim." Lucas reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His grip tightened just slightly, an unspoken vow passed between them. Not a romance, not yet, but something real, something raw and waiting. By the end of the week, they were ready. Grace was no longer the waitress who stumbled into the wrong car. She was walking into danger with her head high, her heart steady, and a purpose burning bright within her. And beside her, Lucas, a man who had once trusted no one, had finally found someone worth fighting for, too. The Haverly Foundation gala sparkled like a scene from a movie. Grace stood in a borrowed black dress, hair swept back, an earpiece hidden discreetly beneath one strand. She blended in with the catering staff, carrying a silver tray of champagne flutes as she moved through the glittering ballroom. Her heart thundered. In her ear, Lucas's calm voice guided her. "You're doing fine. He's by the north wall talking to a man in a gray tux. That's our target." Grace spotted Henry Vale immediately. He looked older than in the photos, but no less smug, laughing, clapping a hand on someone's shoulder, swirling his whiskey like the world owed him nothing and he owed the world even less. He did not recognize her. Grace approached, careful, playing her part perfectly. "Champagne, sir?" He barely looked at her. "Keep them coming." She dipped her head and stepped back, heart pounding, as the micro-recorder clipped to the inside of her dress activated. Through the din of conversation she heard it, Vale discussing a new shell company, funds rerouted offshore, a name she recognized from one of Lucas's red-flagged files. It was enough. She stepped away, slipping behind a curtain to make her exit, and nearly collided with a man in black. A security guard. Too alert. Too fast. "Where are you going?" he asked. Grace smiled too quickly. "Restroom." He eyed her tray, now empty. "You're not staff." She bolted. The shout came behind her just as she hit the emergency exit. Lights flared, alarms blared. The chase began. Through the service halls, down steel stairs, out into the alleyway. She ran, breath ragged, heels clutched in her hand. From the shadows, a motorcycle roared to life. "Lucas, get on!" he shouted. She jumped on behind him just as another guard appeared, reaching for a weapon. The bike sped forward, tires screeching on wet asphalt. As they turned a corner, a pipe swung from a second man in black, too fast to avoid. Lucas shielded Grace with his body. The blow landed hard on his shoulder. He groaned but didn't slow down. Grace clung to him, trembling, as they disappeared into the night. Back at the warehouse, she helped him from the bike, her hands shaking. "You're hurt." "I've had worse," he muttered, though sweat beaded on his brow. She sat him down, tore away part of his jacket to reveal a deep bruise blooming across his back. "You need a hospital." "No hospitals, they'll be watching." She cleaned the wound with shaking hands, pressing gauze as gently as she could. He flinched but didn't complain. After a long silence, Lucas looked at her, his voice barely a whisper. "I thought I could keep you outside the line. Safe, away from what I've become. Grace paused, staring at him. He continued, eyes dark. "But you walked in and did what I never had the courage to do." He reached for her hand, blood-stained fingers trembling slightly. "If this had gone wrong, I would never have forgiven myself." Grace didn't answer. She'd just held his hand tighter, and for the first time, Lucas Black, the man who trusted no one, let himself lean into her warmth. They had crossed a line, not just in the mission, but in each other's lives. The rain finally stopped. The night outside the warehouse was still, a rare quiet settling over the world as if it were catching its breath after the storm. Inside, the makeshift base was cloaked in a dim glow from an old desk lamp. Grace sat in the corner, knees hugged to her chest, while Lucas, his shoulder still bandaged from the escape, moved slowly, lost in thought. For the first time since their wild journey began, there was no immediate danger, no alarms or rushing footsteps. It was almost peaceful. And that peace frightened Grace more than she cared to admit. She watched Lucas pace, his jaw tight, eyes fixed on the maps and files scattered across the table. She knew he was planning their next move, but all she could feel was the growing distance between them, a chasm carved not by secrets anymore, but by what they could never be. Grace's thoughts spiraled. The past few days had changed her. She was no longer the invisible waitress scraping by, too numb to dream. She had risked her life. She had faced down the man who destroyed her family. And yet, she could not shake the feeling that Lucas belonged to another world, a world of power, of choices, of second chances. She was never offered. She stood quietly, intending to slip away just for a walk, just for some air, but Lucas caught her, with his voice gentle and strained. "Where are you going?" Grace hesitated, just out for a minute. He saw the backpack slung over her shoulder, the nervous set of her jaw. "You, leaving, weren't you?" She swallowed hard, not meeting his eyes. "Maybe I should go, Lucas. You do not need me anymore. You have what you need. You have the proof. You can bring Vale down." He stepped toward her, wincing at the pain in his side. "That's not what this is about." She shook her head. "Isn't it? You are the one with everything to lose. I do not know. Just someone who was at the wrong place, wrong time. I am not like you. I do not belong in your world. You are a millionaire. I am just trying to survive." Lucas's voice was rough, almost a whisper. "Do you really think that's all I see when I look at you?" Grace felt her throat tighten. "I do not know what you see. I only know what I see every time I look in the mirror. A waitress. A girl whose family was ruined. Someone who had to fight for scraps, for a bed to sleep in, for a future that never felt like hers." She looked up, her eyes glistening. "You could change everything. You have that power. I am just me." Lucas crossed the space between them, stopping just an arm's length away. "Grace, do you want to know what I see? I see the only person who did not run away when things got dangerous. I see someone who risked her life to fight for justice, not just for herself, but for people she will never meet. I see the person who dragged me back from the edge when I was ready to give up." Grace dropped her gaze, fidgeting with the strap of her backpack. "You do not need me to fight this. You are strong enough on your own. I am just—" Her voice broke, softer now. "I am just tired of losing, Lucas. I do not want to lose you too, but I do not know how to be part of your life." Lucas's expression softened. He reached out, taking her hand in both of his grip warm and steady. "You do not have to be anyone except who you are. Do you know why I let you stay? Why I needed you here? Because you were the only person in my life who saw me as a man, not a cause, not a headline, not a mission. You made me want to be better. Not just for revenge, but for hope." A single tear rolled down Grace's cheek. "Why do you care, Lucas? Why me?" He did not let go of her hand. "Because you are the reason I am still here. The reason I did not die with the man I used to be. You brought me back. You are not just surviving, Grace, you are living. And you taught me how to live again." She could barely breathe. her emotions a swirling storm inside. But what if I am not enough for you? What if I can never be enough? Lucas shook his head gently. You are enough, more than enough. I do not want a perfect life, Grace. I want a real one, with you in it. I do not care about the money, the name, the revenge, not anymore. I care about you. I care about us. For a long moment they stood in silence. Grace let herself feel it, all the pain, all the hope, all the longing she thought she had lost. She let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe she deserved this. Finally, she whispered, I do not know how to start over, Lucas. He squeezed her hand. Then let's figure it out together. No more running, no more hiding, just us, here, now. In the soft light, their shadows intertwined on the wall. Grace slowly put down her backpack, tears slipping down her face. But for the first time in years, she was not crying from fear or loss, but from the simple, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, her story was not over. Lucas pulled her gently into his arms. You are not alone, Grace, not ever again. As dawn crept into the warehouse, they stood together, facing whatever would come next, not as millionaire and waitress, not as hero and victim, but as two survivors choosing each other, despite everything the world tried to take away. The warehouse was unusually quiet the next morning. The dusty rays of sunlight filtered through cracked windows, lighting the worn papers and wires that had once mapped every piece of Lucas's revenge. But now, the space no longer felt like a war room, it felt like a waiting room. For justice, for closure. Grace and Lucas sat side by side on the bench against the wall. Neither spoke much that day. The silence between them was not cold, it was full of breath, full of something steady. Their hands found each other's naturally, without words. When night came, Grace stood before Lucas, holding the drive containing everything they had collected. Names, accounts, recordings, every detail of Henry Vale's schemes. We have everything, she said softly, eyes meeting his. It's time, Lucas nodded. He had spent years building this moment, chasing ghosts and gathering shadows, but now it was real, tangible, terrifying. He turned to Grace. Are you ready for what comes next? It's not going to be easy. I wasn't ready when I lost my father, or when I spent 2 years scraping plates just to afford a bed. But I showed up anyway, she replied, voice strong. I'll show up now too. Lucas's chest tightened. He had never met someone like her, bruised by life but not broken, made of resilience and grief and something unshakable. They uploaded the files anonymously to major news outlets. They sent hard copies to investigative journalists. Then they sat in the dark and waited. Within hours it began. Breaking news banners exploded across television screens. Exposed, billionaire Henry Vale linked to financial manipulation, illegal holdings. Journalists scrambled to verify, dissect, confirm. Whistleblower documents poured into the public eye like a flood let loose from a dam. The media frenzy was instant. Vale's offices were swarmed, the stock market trembled, and by the next morning a formal investigation was announced. But the world did not stop for celebration. Grace and Lucas knew their work was not done. The most important battle still lay ahead. Grace was summoned to testify. As a direct victim and eyewitness, her account would be crucial in building the human side of the case. At first, the thought of facing a courtroom full of strangers made her stomach twist into knots, but Lucas never left her side. When the day came, she stood tall in a navy blue dress, simple, dignified. She did not wear makeup to cover her past. She carried it with her, like armor. On the stand, her voice was steady. My father was a quiet man, she began, her eyes finding the jury. He worked in a small business for 20 years. One day he trusted the wrong person. That person was Henry Vale. Within 6 months, everything we had was gone. Our home, my college fund, my father's hope. And she paused, her voice softening. He took his life 3 weeks later. A gasp echoed in the room. I spent the next few years, angry, scared, ashamed, until I met someone who showed me that truth is the only way to heal. So, I'm here, not for revenge, But to stop this from happening again, Lucas watched from the back of the room. He had seen operatives under fire, agents risking everything, but none of them held a candle to the courage Grace showed that day. After the hearing, Grace stepped outside into the sunlight. She took a breath that tasted like victory and sorrow all at once. She turned to find Lucas waiting for her across the steps. "You did it," he said. "No," she replied. "We did." They walked to the car in silence, the weight of years slowly lifting. As they pulled away from the courthouse, Grace asked, "What happens now?" "When the cameras turn off, when the headlines fade." Lucas was quiet for a moment before replying, "I spent so long chasing justice that I forgot what life looks like without a war to fight. But today, when you stood up there, I realized I don't need headlines. I don't need vengeance." He looked at her, eyes soft. "I just need you." Grace looked down, heart full and breaking open all at once. "I'm scared," she whispered, "that this is too good to be real." Lucas reached across and took her hand. "Then let's make it real." They drove in silence until Lucas pulled into a quiet park, the sun beginning to set over the trees. He stepped out first, then walked around to her door. Grace joined him in the grass, the wind brushing her face, carrying the scent of new beginning. "I used to think if I could just destroy Vale, I'd be free," he said. "But I was wrong." He turned to her, voice shaking with emotion. "If I lose everything again, my name, my wealth, my fight, it won't matter. As long as you're still beside me. You're not just part of the story, Grace. You're the ending I never saw coming." Tears welled in Grace's eyes. She reached up, brushing his face gently. "And you're the reason I believe in second chances." They stood there, wrapped in silence and each other, no longer fugitives, no longer shadows. Just two people who had chosen to stop running, two hearts still healing, but healing together. And when Lucas leaned in and kissed her forehead, it wasn't a promise of forever, it was a vow for today. For every day they would choose to stand not in fear, but in truth. Together. The cabin sat quietly at the foot of the mountains, its wood faded by weather and time, its porch blanketed with wild flowers that danced gently in the morning breeze. A year had passed since the world had watched Henry Vale fall from his throne. A year since Grace and Lucas stopped running. Now they lived simply. Lucas spent his days restoring old furniture and tending to a modest garden behind the house. Grace had taken up writing. Her first book, The Car That Changed Everything, was nearly done. Some chapters were raw, filled with storm and loss. Others, tender and full of quiet redemption. It was not about exposing Vale. It was about how the most unexpected moments, like stepping into the wrong car, could lead to everything that truly mattered. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Grace sat at the kitchen table, typing slowly, lost in thought. Lucas entered with a bundle of firewood in his arms, setting it down with a soft grunt. "You're almost done?" he asked, brushing dust off his hands. Grace smiled. "One more page." Before Lucas could answer, a knock echoed at the door. They looked at each other, neither expecting visitors. Lucas moved first, opening the door cautiously. An older woman stood outside, her gray coat buttoned up tightly, her hands trembling. She looked up at Grace, tears already forming in her eyes. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," she said softly, voice shaking. "You're Grace, right? Grace Holloway?" Grace nodded slowly. "Yes. Can I help you?" The woman stepped forward. "My name is Linda. My son, he was one of the whistleblowers in Vale's company. They destroyed him. He couldn't prove anything. He tried to fight, and he didn't survive." Grace's throat tightened. "But because of you," Linda continued, "people know the truth now. Because of what you did, he didn't die for nothing." She reached out, took Grace's hands in hers. "I just came here to say thank you." And then she embraced Grace, an embrace full of grief, gratitude, and something else. Peace. Tears ran silently down Grace's cheeks as she hugged the woman back. When Linda finally stepped away, Lucas appeared behind Grace and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, grounding her in the moment. They watched as Linda walked away, disappearing down the gravel road lined with maple trees. The sun dipped lower behind the mountains, casting a golden glow across the valley. Lucas kissed Grace's temple, and together they stepped onto the porch. They stood in silence, looking out at the open field before them. No sirens, no shadows, no secrets. Just the sound of wind moving through leaves and the steady rhythm of two hearts that had finally found a place to rest. No one was chasing, no one was running. And in that stillness, wrapped in each other's arms, they knew something deep and true. They had survived. They had chosen each other, and they had finally come home. If this story touched something deep inside you, if it reminded you that even the darkest nights can lead to the brightest dawns, that healing often comes from the most unexpected places, and that love can be found even when all hope seems lost, then you, too, believe in second chances. Grace and Lucas didn't just survive. They chose to live again, love again, and build something beautiful out of the wreckage of pain. Their journey reminds us that sometimes life puts us in the wrong place, just to bring us to the right person. If this story stirred your soul, don't let it end here. Hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss another story that heals, inspires, and lingers in your heart long after the credits roll. This is Soul-Stirring Stories, where every tale is a journey home. See you in the next story.